And we can sit here in comfort because someone else had a dream. We can sit here in comfort because someone else had a dream, not just for himself or just his family, but for his people, his tribe, right? Something is going to happen in our lives that will affect other people. Not just not like an entire race or an entire people. For some of you, you will, but at least, let's just think of our children. At least, let us just think of the future generation after us, and not being so selfish as to only think of ourselves, but thinking of people that we can help far after we're gone. And we appreciate Martin for that. He stood up to fight before any of us could or would. The question is, back then, would you have taken that dream and actually did something with it? I have a couple of takeaways from just that video, then I'll get into the conversation. We won't be here long, you all, but what I found was interesting is they said before that speech in front of 200,000 people, they used to talk to small groups. Man. You're used to talking to small groups, and it's not like I'm going from a group of 20 people to 30 to 100 to 200 to 300 to 500 to 1,000 to 1,500, 2,000, large group of 4,000, 5,000, stadium of 8,000, 10,000, then 15,000, then 20,000 people. At this point, I'm a large crowd speaker. Then I'm getting in front of 30,000, then 40,000, then 50,000. A couple years later, I eclipse 80,000 people, and I get to post about it on the gram and tell all my friends. And then the dream comes one day, 100,000. He went from small groups to 200,000 people under the sound of his voice. But he was prepared while he was talking to the small crowds. You understand what I'm saying? Just throw it in the chat if you understand what I'm telling you. Everything doesn't always have a slow progression. We expect us to go from $1,000 a month to $1,500 to $2,000 to $3,000 to $3,200. Then we have a bad month going back to $2,500. Then we get back up to $3,000 and $3,500, and then $4,000 a month. And we're like, ooh, this is lit. It's consistent. I'm at $4,200 a month, then $4,700, then $5,000 every single month in my business. This is lit. Oh my gosh, $6,000. I'm going into work with a whole nother attitude. Who y'all talking to? Who are you talking to? What you mean you picked that up? What you mean? Hey, can I come into my off day? No, no. I got stuff to do. I'm with my children. What you mean can I work overtime? No. I'm at $6,500 a month in my business, then $7,000. And we think to get all the way up to $50,000 a month, it's going to take that progression, but I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be that. However, you have to prepare for the moment. And a lot of us miss the moment that is supposed to be our breakout moment, because in the times where we're just doing our little thing, we don't do it with intensity. They said my man's speech was part speech, part poetry. But you learned it from being in the trenches of talking to your small groups or talking to your people. I'm super impressed by that. You don't get somebody who is just talented to speak in front of 200,000 people. We think that because we are talented or we're good at it, that is going to sustain us. That's not the stuff that changes the world. This man had depth in his conversation. They were writing his script, but he had a script, but the script wasn't his speech. His speech was his preparation. His speech was his experiences. Depth of a person. We are a very, very surface generation because we get time to put together our 60-second clips and pull the hot clips out of it. Very, very few people can stand on a podium and give the crowd work for an hour. And out of the few people that can actually do that, there's only very few people that can actually move a room and cause them. Listen, Inky Johnson is probably the best in the world. Him and E.T. Golly. It's not just like people see a motivational speaker and say, whoa, they're good. And you're like, you know what? I have a message. And I see myself on that stage. I could do that. You can do that, but you can't do what they did. It's a depth of experience. So some of us are hurt by the things that hurt us, but I'm telling you, that's the thing that prepares us for battle. For us to have this one moment that will change our lives forever. I went to American Sesh yesterday, and I thought it was really, really cool, man. Had a great time. And in those scenarios, like we're all on a stage and we're talking about entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurs get to ask their question. And when they get to ask their question, we get to answer it. I used to get nervous. I was still a little nervous when you first walk out. But once we're on my playing field on something that I do and have the experiences, oh my gosh, I'm super comfortable. Well, I kick my feet up. Let's go. Let's get to work. And you are going to see, if I get a chance to talk about entrepreneurship with you, you're going to see this ain't just some eloquent conversation. Find you. I know where you're at. And in your seat, I can find you. Like there's something here, but there has to be a depth of knowledge that's developed. And I'm telling you, all of these experiences, all these books you're reading, all these podcasts you're listening to, it adds to the depth, but then we got to get it out there. Martin was giving a speech every single week, formally, but I'm sure he's giving presentations multiple times a week outside of his church. But also, dreams come from action taking. Dreams coming from action takers mean more. Martin was actually on this front line. It wasn't just a good speech. It wasn't just a cool dream. It was accompanied with action. So let's get into it, man. Listen, I know I have a dream. Somebody throw it in the chat. I have a dream if you have one. If you don't have one, don't put it in the chat. Throw I have a dream in the chat. I thought it was so cool that Martin was prepared for this moment to speak to over 200,000 people about his dream. Now, we get a chance to do that every day. We're on a platform with 1 billion people. And every now and again, something goes viral. Martin Luther King went viral. And when your message is good enough, it does. But I need to know that you have a dream. If there's something that you see, can you envision the perfect life? And listen, it doesn't have to be as deep as Martin Luther King, okay? Because he was fighting for an entire race of people. And actually physically more demanding. But I think it may have been easier to fight back then. Physically more demanding, but our people are on the same page. We're all experiencing the same oppression. So it makes it easier to fight with the people that are fighting. it will be nearly impossible. It will be nearly impossible for us to have another Martin Luther King or another Malcolm X. Why? Because there's too many people who are comfortable. It's too many people like us in power who don't want to lose their position. It will be nearly impossible to get everybody on the same page. And maybe my dream isn't big enough. But they didn't have as much divisiveness amongst the people back then. There weren't blogs that talked about each other. There were more important issues than how a man should treat a woman or how a woman should treat a man. There were more important conversations than that back then. We have a fight. But I'm hoping that it's somebody in a small corner of the world that says, I have a dream. I'm sure there was somebody back then that thought the same way that I'm thinking right now. It's impossible for us to get pulled up by our bootstraps. It's impossible for us to ever get out of this oppression. I'm sure there was somebody that was saying what I'm saying now, and Martin proved them wrong. Every time we talk about a solution, we start like, there's so many arguments, and the arguments are amongst our people. I don't know what would have to happen. Our people would have to go through something even more tragic, I think. It may be easier for people to come together from different countries, right? Because there's still extreme oppression in other parts of the world. That's my thoughts. My question to you, though, is there something that you can see that you don't have right now? Is there something that you see? Can you see and envision the perfect life for yourself, the perfect life for your family, the accomplishments? I need you to see it first. What does it look like? What does it feel like? I just want us to like sit for a second. We can just pause the day for a minute and just sit back and see something. We very rarely get to dream because we are always working, we're always awake, and even when we're asleep, our mind is racing from the time that we wake up and grab our phone and scroll through social media, and we get up and our objective is to feed our family, to make sure we make the money, make sure we keep building whatever we're building, and very few of us sit back and dream for a minute just to make sure it's still there. One of my favorite quotes, and I wrote it in my first book, you have to remember what you saw and don't put too much weight on what you see. What you saw was that vision when you started this business, when you started this idea, you had something in your head that you said, this is going to work. Remember. Do you remember? Do you remember when you first started? Do you remember when you first had the idea? Do you remember when you first started putting your money into this idea? Do you remember how you felt? The energy wrapped around this brand new idea, the energy around this concept, this energy around the dream where you knew this is going to be the thing that takes you into a different zip code. You understood that. This is the thing that's going to allow you to leave your job, and you start envisioning how you're going to quit. I'm the only person? Y'all ain't talking to me today, this morning? That's cool. I talk to myself, that's cool. Listen, I got an imaginary chat where I could just see what's, you know what I mean? Do you remember it? I'm just saying, do you remember it? Wait, like the energy, your friends supported. When it first came out, people like rallied behind you because they were just excited and proud of you. And you're like, yo, these people have no idea. You have to go back to remembering that, because somewhere along the way we lose the dream. Somewhere, I don't know what happened in your journey, but somewhere along the way we lost hold of it, because we forget what we saw and we start seeing what we see, and what we see is not favorable. What we see is the amount of money we actually have in our account. What we see is a lack of sales. What we see is the trials. What we see is the issue. What we see is how we feel right now emotionally. What we see is the comparison to other people. What we see is we thought we saw we are the only person to do this, but then we get in the field and we see other people that, by the way, do it better than us. So I'm asking you all to go back to remembering what you saw, ignoring what you see. Let me tell you this. What you see may feel real, but it's a simulation. What you saw is reality. What you see is a simulation. What you saw is reality. What you see right now is not real. The things that you're going through right now, it's not real. It's not actually happening to tear you down. The real reality was the dream that you saw. That's real. And if you could wrap your mind around the concept of what I'm saying, when bad things happen, I say to myself, oh, this is not real. I'm soon going to wake up from this nightmare. I'm going to wake up.